And the first item on the agenda is the public comment period. So if there's anyone in the audience that wishes to make comments, just step up to the podium and give us your name and address.
Hello, my name is Jeff Mueller. I'm the Chief Deputy with the Winona County Sheriff's Department.
Welcome.
Just wanted to take a moment out of your time tonight during the public comment section to make a couple recognitions of a couple of our officers with the Sheriff's Department. Some of them you may recognize that have been up here before, and a couple of new ones will get some recognition tonight too. This is for their efforts in DWI enforcement and driving under the influence, drug impaired drivers. As the board might remember, probably about a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago, we applied for, specifically Deputy Myers made a lot of efforts in applying for a driving under the influence officer grant, which dedicated an officer strictly to enforcing DWI laws and that sort of thing. He put a lot of effort into that grant and applied for it many years in being rejected many years till finally they broke down and gave us that grant anyway. And really what it does is affords us the opportunity to afford a deputy, specifically in this situation, Deputy Myers, the opportunity to spend his time focused on the very serious driving under the influence and taking impaired drivers off of the road. So tonight we're going to make a recognition just of their efforts in that enforcement. I'm going to introduce Scott McConkey with Minnesota Traffic Safety. Office of Traffic Safety to explain a little bit of the award and make the presentation to him. So thank you.
This is another old guy. So my name's Scott McConkey. I work for the Minnesota Office of Traffic Safety. Thank you, Chief Deputy. Also retired trooper. I tried it for 33 years, didn't work out. I finally had to move on. I was a night trooper that worked out of Rochester, and what that meant, when all the other troopers went to bed, we covered the district. So I covered all 11 counties, southeast Minnesota after midnight, including Winona County. Love your county. I spent many years observing in the dark, and I thoroughly love coming over here in the day and seeing the bluffs, seeing the rivers. And Garvin Heights was a place I found where I could bring a sandwich once Quick Trips came across the river, and Coke, and go up there and sit and have my lunch and just kind of recollect my thoughts, and wonderful spot to do that. But I've been before this board several times. I see a number of new faces, but I do want to thank you for your valuable time, because it is very valuable. And thank you for taking this to honor some of your deputies. This is not just about them, though. It's about all of us. And this is about government officials and cops that took an oath to do all we could to keep our community and the people we serve safe. And it's about the community and their grateful attitude towards the law enforcement that gives them a safer place to live. I did a similar presentation over in McLeod County just earlier this week. And I went on Facebook and I saw they had posted it on their site. And what I thought was interesting were the comments, one after another. Thank you, thank you, thank you for keeping us safe. So again, it's about us, it's about them, but it's about the community too, and their grateful attitude for what you provide. So some people die from drunk driving, some have wounds that never heal. And just real quick, a story. When I was a trooper, I can remember I was over by the McDonald's in Rochester, close to Broadway, when I got a call of a crash on Highway 61 north of town here. Normally when I come that far, I'm about the last one to arrive, but it was a wrong way driver, very intoxicated this about 30 years ago, in a big Lincoln Town car. Hit a young gal in a little Dodge Omni, crushed it like a can. I was told nobody even initially ran to the car. They didn't think anyone could survive. Well, she did survive. And incredibly, about 5 years through telling this story, someone said, I know who you're talking about, and I know where she lives. She lives right here in Winona. She's, I would guess, in her 40s now. We reconnected about 5 years ago. So now it's been about 30. But she still suffers to this day. every day with pain from that crash. It didn't go away. And she's still having surgery. So it's just a reminder to all of us and why we do what we do. We have holiday season coming up, and we want to make sure it's a time people remember of good times and joy and the pleasure of being with family. Not that they lost a loved one or suffered consequences that are going to last forever. So we're here to honor these deputies. I had a hard time carrying all this in. I've never had this many presented at one time, but that's a good thing. But I want to make it clear, this is not a competition. It's not a race. Dealing with DWI, which I did a lot myself, is a lot of work. It's not easy. It's time consuming. And if you happen to encounter 2 impaired drivers you take off the road in the shift, that's a lot of work. Yet if you go out and do 3, that means there's a work ethic that just says never give up. Well, we got a case that I'm going to also bring up where there was 4 in the evening, and that's only happened a handful of times in this state. So Chad, we might as well get you up here right away, and I can unload a lot of the hardware I brought. Make sure. Yeah, I don't want to give you the, there we go. Okay. There's more. So, Jeff, could you just hold on a second? I'm going to explain these, and we use kind of the analogy of the hockey game where they get the hat trick. Hence, out of that, years ago, came up with presenting a hockey stick if they achieve that level. Well, with Deputy Myers, and this goes back to the beginning of the year. So he had a hat trick in January, and then a grand slam, 4 in one shift in February, and then another hat trick this October. So I'm going to start with this. Thank you, Chad. I hope you can hold on to this. That's for the one hat trick. Here's for the other. Okay. So now you're wondering why I have 2 bats, but this is the one I first mentioned. It's the Grand Slam, and it's for the 4 arrests he made that evening. And that particular night, a big problem we're having used to be impaired driving was a nighttime type of concern. Now it's 24/7 with the drugs out there. It's there all the time. And several of these, I believe, were drug impaired as well. So it takes special skill and observation to find those folks and help get them off the road. So there you go. Now, Chad has also done something that is very unique. He has been nominated and has achieved the Minnesota DWI All-Star team, and they're awarded their recognition at a Twins game. Unfortunately, with supply and demand, yep, it's hit us too, they came late. So I have his DWI All-Star team back. There you go, Chad. If I understand, it's the 11th year of that in a row. Okay. I'm going to grab you your hat and pins after you sit down because I'll grab them for the other gentleman here. But Chad, thank you, buddy. Any questions of Chad before he sits down?
Pardon me?
Any questions of Chad before he sits down? It's quite a...
Well, I'm sorry that he has to obtain these
Yes.
awards. And it's problematic that the first words out of our newly elected governor was the legalization of recreational marijuana, which I know will contribute to,
Yep.
Unfortunately, Chad probably getting more of these awards, which is not going to be something that we really want to celebrate. But
Yes.
I'm glad that we do have somebody that's very observant.
I'm so glad you brought that perspective, because sometimes when I'm doing this, when I look at the stats and I'm going, we've made a lot of headway, but how easy it still is relatively to go out and find folks driving impaired. When I started, we were killing in traffic crashes just under about 50,000 a year. Half of those were impaired people. Now the we're down to about 30,000 people or less a year, and a third of those are impaired. The thing is, we're saving about 10,000 people a year from where we were when I first started. So that's a good thing, but thanks for pointing out, because it's way too much stuff, way too much. Uh-oh. I'll be right back.
Well, thank you, Chad. That's quite a set
And
of
that's
it.
the big-
That's quite a
so-
set of achievements. So thank-
We have one deputy that won't be here, Tanner Clay. He also achieved. Oh, no, I'm sorry, Tanner. And I asked Tanner, how do you pronounce Clay? Before we started. Yes, it's Craig Wurzel, but Tanner Clay, why don't you come on up, buddy? Okay, now this was kind of a steal because Tanner came over from Wabasha County, and it was their loss. Winona County's gained. You're fortunate to have him. So he's brought his skill in DWI detection and removing him off the road over here. So he also was a member this year for the DWI All-Star team. Is this your first year going up there for that? Yeah.
Yep.
But honorable mention, it's been about 2-3 years. Yeah.
Yep.
So Tanner, there's your bat. Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Tanner.
Thank you.
We got more we're gonna give him, being it's a team. Yeah. Sorry, everything is, like I said, I'm not used to so much stuff here, but Tanner also gets the hat to go along with that, the team hat. And then what's kind of nice, a lot of these folks have done it multiple years. We now have a pin, so it reflects, 1, 2, or 3, how many times they achieved that. So, oh, you already grabbed yours. Thank you.
Where does that go
So-
officially on the uniform?
That is up to the sheriff if they can wear them, otherwise the headliner of their squad or whatever, so. Again, don't want to trivialize it and make a game out of it, but we do want to recognize their efforts in what they do here. So this is your second DWI also. Deputy, why don't you come on up? This is Zachary Burke is, I just found out it's 2 years. I just meeting him for the first time. And already he's taken the initiative to be proactive and pursue this area of enforcement that's so crucial. The thing about traffic and impaired driving, it doesn't come to you. You have to go out and look for it. You have to be proactive. You have to be dedicated. So when I see your career starting that way, thank you very much, Zachary. So Zachary's part of the DWI All-Star honorable mention. And I'm going to read this real quick. Deputy Burke, in recognition of Winona County Sheriff Deputy Burke's DWI enforcement efforts, he is designated as a 2022 DWI All-Star by the Minnesota Office of Traffic Safety, signed Director Mike Hansen. So there you go. And he gets the hat and the pin also. Oh, you got that already?
Yeah.
Man, I'm glad I'm lightening my load. I getting less and less there, but Chad, you didn't get your hat. Here you go. And as I said, we had one more. I'm gonna leave that with the chief deputy, but this is for Deputy Craig Wurzel, who couldn't be here. So I'll give that to you. But sorry for all the confusion with all this and things falling over. I should almost had built a stand so I could put all this. But again, thank you for your time and you're honoring your deputies this week.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry, any questions?
No, thank you for coming over.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you for just giving us the opportunity and time to come in and make the quick presentation. So thank you very much.
Yeah, can we get a picture of everybody? I know I saw Mr. Meyer's picture in the paper. but-
Yeah, get a picture. We're going to take one out here and we'll get it to whoever.
You guys all want to be in it? You're welcome. I know you got business.
We didn't do
Thank you
it.
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, the public comment period. Anyone who wishes to make a public comment, just step to the podium, tell us your name and address, and you have 2 minutes.
Hi, Commissioners. Tim Aarons, 12969 County Road 31, Altura. I'm here to encourage you to have the discussion regarding the Road and Bridge Committee. At last meeting, it came up that there weren't bylaws or ordinance in terms of what the makeup of the Road and Bridge Committee should be. And so I think that needs to be addressed and probably more appropriate to be done at the county board, considering it'd be at the Road and Bridge Committee for bylaws, it'd be a majority of highway department staff voting whether they'd retain a majority of the Road and Bridge Committee. So probably a good discussion for here, and I appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, is there anyone else wishing to speak before the board? Is there anyone online? Okay, let me ask the third and final time. Is there anyone online or in the audience that wishes to have a 2-minute comment period before the board meeting? Okay, the public comment period is closed. Need the founder.
Where'd the gavel go?
Never mind. Doesn't matter. Okay, next on the agenda, we need approval of the county board minutes.
Move to approve 3.1. Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Jacobs, seconded by Commissioner Olson to approve the county board minutes of November 8th, 2022. Any discussion? All those in favor of approval signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? Okay, thank you. And acknowledge receipt of approved committee minutes.
I'll move to approve 4.1.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Meyer and a second by Commissioner Olson to acknowledge receipt of the committee minutes from the Economic Development Authority of July 28th, 2022. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? Okay, thank you. Okay, consent comments. Commissioner Ward,
Nothing tonight.
Commissioner Meyer.
I have nothing.
I have nothing. Commissioner Olson
Nothing for me.
and Commissioner Jacob.
Still can't believe Marcia had nothing. Nothing for me.
None of us had nothing.
Well,
That's-
give me time. I'll think of.
That's very bad grammar.
Can
But,
I reserve the right?
None of us had nothing.
None of us had nothing.
County attorney,
Just one comment.
okay,
I'll break the.
Break this.
and interim administrator Holte.
Nothing, Madam Chair.
Okay. Good, thank you very much. How about approval of the agendas? Anybody want to pull any of the consent business items? I should have asked that at the same time, sorry.
I'll move to approve the agenda as presented. I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Motion by Commissioner Ward, seconded by Commissioner Meyer to approve the agenda as printed. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Okay, Administrator Holte, would you please read the consent business into the record?
Absolutely. 6.1, approve 2023 County Board meeting schedule. 6.2, approve special assessment for 46937 Riverview Drive, La Crescent, Minnesota. 6.3, approve amendment number 3 for grant contract number 181906 for child and teen checkups administrative services. 6.4, approve early ordering of highway department loader. 6.5, approve addendum to fiscal year 2021 regional safe drinking water for private well user sub agreement. And 6.6, confirm payment of disbursements.
I will move to approve the consent business as read.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Jacobs, seconded by Commissioner Ward to approve the consent business as read. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of approving the consent business as read signify by saying aye. Aye. Oppose? Okay, thank you. General business, item 7.1. This is on page 56 of the agenda. And involves a discussion of the administrative position.
I'll make a motion that the board offers a position of county administrator to Brian Anderson.
I'll second it for discussion.
Okay, almost ran out the clock there, Commissioner Ward. Okay. So we have a motion and a second to offer the position to Brian Anderson. Is there any discussion? Commissioner Meyer?
Yeah, I thought that he ranked highly before the interview, but I dropped to the bottom during the interview for me, and he didn't rank very highly in either of the other candidate interviews. Support that motion.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, I'm not in favor of the motion. He did rank high on paper, and then after he came and met with us, I think I saw a different focus. He was almost entirely finance focused, which the job is more than finance. Yes, it's a great deal of finance, but it was more than finance. And I looked over the citizen panel and department head panel, and there was kind of mixed results in there. So for those reasons, I can't support moving him forward. Commissioner Ward?
Yeah, so a question, then if there isn't support, what is the alternative? Do you have a recommended alternative to finding a replacement for?
We have a motion on the floor. Did Commissioner Meyer
Oh, well,
I think we could discuss it.
Yeah.
want to discuss an
I
alternative?
seconded it for discussion.
yeah, okay.
Okay. Commissioner
So-
Meyer.
Yeah, so I spoke with Mr. Melvin. He couldn't be here today, and he communicated with both interim administrator Holte and I. So what he said is, if we were not able to advance a candidate tonight, that his recommendation would be to wait 6 months if we were going to post again. And then he said, which kind of surprised me, and maybe one of you or Administrator Holte has a better idea. He said that it would be $5,000 to engage them, David Down and Associates again. His time wouldn't cost any more, and it would then just be the expenses, which apparently this time were around $2,000. So we would have the option in 2023 of doing a round 3. In my thinking about this, I feel like the candidates that we had who, Cassandra was a great person. She was very positive. She ranked really highly from both the citizens and the department heads. But we have department heads who have far more experience than what she has, both in finance, both in the number of people that they manage, and in a whole lot of categories. I'm wondering if we couldn't think about doing David Down in 6 months, but also do some kind of an internal posting after the first of the year and see if any of our current department heads are interested in taking the position.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner
So that
Jacob.
statement kind of indicates that you wouldn't support any of the other 3, not just the one that's on the table.
I feel like none of them has more qualifications than our current department, than certain of our individual department heads that we already have on staff.
I think Mr. Anderson was certainly qualified. We spent a great deal of time on this process. We had 5 candidates that could all do the job and do the job successfully. Continue to not take action unless there's just, very blatant reasons why the candidates before us are not qualified. I feel like it's our responsibility and our duty to make good of the finances that we spent on this process and bring this process to fruition.
Commissioner Olson?
I find it interesting that we had a top pick. Then we had a second top pick. And now does it become a top pick or does it become somebody we settle for? Regardless of the money we have invested in the process, I think the position holds more importance than the money that we expended. And it's more than somebody that, or more than a position that we should just settle for somebody. That's where I'm coming, and I'm not going to support the motion.
Commissioner Ward?
The idea of just having an internal recruitment, I mean, anybody internally, externally could have applied in either of our 2 rounds, and they did not. So that kind of tells me that they didn't want to step up and take over the responsibilities and the obligations that that position does. Now, if we open it up just to internal, because you're thinking of avoiding any expenses with David Brown Associates, if you just do it internally, we wouldn't need that. But I guess I find that a little less than genuine if they didn't file in either of our first 2 rounds. Now we're saying, apply. I don't know what signal that sends.
Commissioner Meyer?
Yeah, I think then the alternative would be to wait 6 months.
6 months.
And then if we have internal candidates,
Apply it.
encourage them to
At
apply
the-
then.
at
at
the
that
6
time.
month timeframe. And is there I don't know that there's anything, is there anything magic about 6 months?
Oh, that was just what Pat Melvin said.
Right, because if we, so you're basically saying like in May, and we start the budgeting process already in, June, and that's a big part of the position is the budget. It would be putting somebody at a a tight time frame to put a budget again together for the following year.
Commissioner Meyer?
Yeah, I think he was just saying that because
That's what
it's
we've done
too
in the
fast.
past.
Yeah, if you do it too fast, who else is, you can just get the same people.
Yeah, when I first took a look, when we originally had 6 applicants, when I looked at the videotapes that they had provided and their information on paper, I was concerned because to me, there was a lack of administrative experience throughout the bunch. Now, some of them had a little more than others. Some of them appeared to be excellent department heads, very qualified in what they were doing, but the change of coming from department head to administrator, as we know, is, takes more than just somebody who supervised 7 people or a budget of $4 million. But it seems that we could do this in steps. We could, first we have to decide on Commissioner Jacobs and Commissioner Ward's original motion, but we could then decide on some steps of what to do after we take care of that motion. Does that sound reasonable? Is there any further discussion on the original motion to appoint Brian Anderson?
It wouldn't be a point, it would be to offer.
To offer,
the-
okay.
The position.
Thank you.
Different things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think, first of all, I would say the proof is in the pudding. There was discussion that reasons that some commissioners didn't like Candace. She was snatched up by another county. Eric was snatched up by another county. So to say that these candidates are not qualified, I feel it's my duty and responsibility on a process that we've spent multiple years on to bring the process to fruition. So I'm certainly going to support the motion that I made. I'll be moving on by beginning in January, and this is kicking the can down the road to a new board that hasn't had, of course, any background with any of these candidates. So I guess that's just saying that this board, that's what they want to do. So I think you're missing an opportunity here. And you're also making a statement that when you do advertise again in 6 months, some of these candidates, Rick Neimeyer, he had applied twice. I doubt he's going to throw his hat in the ring the third time. So you're going to be looked at as a board that might as well pass, because you're not going to get this board to make a decision and make a hire.
Commissioner Ward.
I would echo some of the same sentiments. The word on the street will be, do you really want to come work for Winona County? I think Mr. Anderson, he's got a lot of background, more background in county government than I think almost any of the other candidates did. And as far as, we've said we've got great department heads and everything. So I would expect anybody that comes into the position as administrator would have the support of the department heads to make it, a great team. I think he probably he wasn't my top pick, but I think he could be groomed into leading the county into a forward position. But again, it's the voice of the majority of the board. So I'll call a question to take a vote.
Okay, do we have to vote on a call a question? Okay. All those in favor of calling?
Second.
Oh, Robert's rules are not my strength. We have them
Second,
right.
yes.
Yeah, it does need a second. Okay, dies for lack of a second. I have some comments to make, so as chair, I was waiting. What other counties have decided to do is really not any of my opinion. And it just seemed to me when I looked at, we got more background on Candace as we went through some of the negotiations. And when I saw the candidates that had applied for their position, or I saw the advertisement that was used, their candidates had far more administrative experience because it was highlighted in their job application, job qualifications. So I think the chance to do it over gives the board a chance to recruit administrators rather than department heads who want to be administrators. So I would let the process run out and let the new board deal with it for a while, deal with the situation that we have for a while, because we're very competent in terms of how we're being taken care of now, and let it roll on and see what the next group wants. Are there any other comments? Okay, let's take a vote on the motion. The motion was to offer the position to Brian Anderson, made by Commissioner Jacobs, seconded by Commissioner Ward. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those oppose? Nay. Okay, the motion fails 3-2. I think, I don't know if we want to put the rest of the discussion into a motion or if we just want to leave it as something we've discussed and that's the direction that we plan to take. Commissioner Meyer,
I would like to move to table the conversation to be taken up at the January meeting when the new board is seated.
okay, we could table it then, we need a second.
Second.
Table it to be discussed at at one of the January meetings.
Which year?
2023.
Of
Yeah.
2023. Okay, is there any discussion? Do we have discussion on a table?
Oh, not debatable.
Not debatable. Okay, but we vote on it.
Yes.
I hope we do.
Yes. Okay, all those in favor of tabling this discussion until one of the first meetings in January? Is it good to leave it open or do you have
I think whatever works for the schedule.
okay,
Maybe not the first meeting, which is.
right, okay. Table it to be discussed at one of the January meetings of 2023.
I would say, and again, having, when you take your oath of office and having this kind of major decision, maybe the evening meeting at the end of
Third one?
January would be more appropriate than, than try and discuss it with a brand new,
I'm fine with that.
Okay,
although we got an experienced member joining, but he's out of practice a little bit, so we'll give him time to get his feet
He'll be
wet.
whipped into shape.
Yeah.
far out of practice. Okay, all right. All those in favor of tabling this motion until one of the January meetings in 2023 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
Hey,
Okay, the motion passes. So we'll table this discussion until a January meeting. Okay, item 7.2, receive the 2023 budget update and provide direction for the 2023 levy. I see Mr. Moga is here and obviously interim administrator Holte. Thank you.
Actually, what we're presenting is, we've actually worked on the budget. We've actually brought the budget down to about 8.9% at the present time. The budget, looking at the budget, there's really not much in the budget, except the, items that were in there. There wasn't no additional new positions. Do you have any questions, I guess?
Commissioner Meyer.
I do have some questions. Okay. So I'm trying to get a bead on the reserves. So I did it two different ways. Number one, I looked at just like, okay, on this one, right, which is page 59. Yeah, okay. So the general government reserve balance, 13,250,000. Right? And then our operating expense, the 3/12 operating expense reserve, which is at the bottom, which is 11,569,473.
Yep, so we'd be over that 13 million.
Yep, so
we-
then that'd be like 1.68,
Yep,
1.68 million in reserves that would be carried over. And then I tried it from the number here, which was the September, the projected reserve balance provided in September of 13 million. And that shows more of like a 2.2 million excess. Which one's more accurate? Which one should I think about?
I would probably be using the one on that spreadsheet that was
Good.
provided, yeah.
Okay.
And talking about using the reserve, we're talking about using them, well, this budget is built with actually using 1 million in reserves.
So a million of the 1,680,000 is we're already,
Yep, that's actually being included in that. And actually, the thing to think about, is with that $1 million reserve is when we actually go into next year, you're looking almost like at a 5% levy just to start at ground zero.
here we go with the lights.
Oh, but that's saving
That's a
money.
signal.
That is saving money. And that really what I was trying to figure out is how much reserves would be left and if there are more. I appreciate that you have gone back and reduced the budget another 1.1,
Yep.
points. And that represents about a little over $200,000,
Yeah,
something like that.
Yeah, I think it's like about $229,000.
Thanks. That was it.
Okay. Commissioner Ward.
Yeah, and I apologize, I made a copy, but we got in an email within the last week or so, and I think it came from Ms. Holte. It was, excuse me, it was a 2-page expenses over revenues. And maybe Ms. Holte, I apologize when I copied that off, but you had a list of both increase and decreases or changes. And then when I go to the page 57, the one that jumped out at me was gasoline and diesel. Okay, and I know gas prices are high, although today it's really low. But you have an increased expenditure of 206,790. But then in this sheet that was sent out last week, about halfway down the page, we have a change, and I'm assuming the parentheses mean a reduction of 105,000. So it's just one example that I'm not able to match up the pieces. So are we spending 206 more, less than 105, or?
That was actually just on that 105,000 was actually in a line item that was actually reduced by that dollar amount because that dollar amount was actually 105 more than that dollar amount. So that line, and I think this is in actually the highway budget, actually was reduced by $105,000.
And I don't remember what the total line is. I'd have to look. I'm trying to work through this 2-page document and figure out where we come up. I'm glad to see it's going down. But I haven't put my finger on the hows and what of how this document. That you started off really highlighting what it was, and then we got down to codes, and then you lose me because I got to look up the code and see what that is, and there were decreases. But then there were some significant increases, like add caseworkers, child support, add caseworkers, social service support, and that's over $100,000 when we said we don't have any new positions here.
So it's not case workers, it's case works.
Case works.
So it's a program that they use to do their job. It's a program,
Oh, is that software?
technology.
Mm-hmm.
And the state of Minnesota doesn't provide us with that to do their work.
No.
Remember that, Commissioner Jacob. Yeah. Okay.
Madam Chair.
Okay. So I'm still trying to.
And those
figure out
two
how
are
this
actually,
sheet works into what you.
yeah, those
provided.
two are different softwares within like the income maintenance and the social services. That's why those two were
Okay.
referred that way.
And then the one that really gets me is the LEC software. Is that the one we spent almost $1 million on just a few short years ago? And it's not, and you were a big advocate for that. And it's already outdated.
No,
It's already,
something that was needed for all of the.
but it didn't last long. We didn't
Right.
recoup.
No, where's the sheriff's office now? If they-
Yeah. I mean, we did, unfortunately, counties spend a lot of money on software to do the jobs that the state of Minnesota tells us to do. And then, because I know that was a very expensive program. And in my opinion, I didn't work with it, but I was told we never used it to its full potential. And now I'm having to replace it already.
Well, and it's also one that we had to use with the court software because they were upgrading and now they're all computerized. So yeah, it's one of the, and then it was bought out by several entities. So it's gone through many iterations. So
Yeah, so the cost benefit is zero.
Well,
Or
we got
close
some
to it.
good benefit out of it, but now it needs to be replaced.
Right. And then on, so now the pavilion, now it's listed here, increased expenditures, but I think this is the pavilion at Apple Blossom Park 35. Isn't that ARPA? So how is that reflected in the budget? I mean, I don't, if it's ARPA, then it really isn't an increase in expenditure. Does it come off
Well,
somewhere?
it's an expenditure, but there's also an offset on the revenue.
Okay,
Yep.
But this notation on the RFBA on page 57 is talking about the main areas of increase in expenditures.
right.
It's not talking about offsetting revenues on that particular section right there. Okay,
Okay, so yeah, like I say, I'm not able to match them up. And the deed career force, was that ARPA
No,
funds?
that's actually, probably, I'm gonna say maybe 5 years ago, the county took on, actually administering the grants for deed. There's like 5 different grants. And so we actually are subcontracting with Career Force to actually do the work, and then we have to submit for the reimbursement. The reason this is actually going up, it's because it's basically in and out. We're matching the revenue to the expense. So the grant amount is going up, the expense went out. So basically, if you look at in those areas, the net budget is 0.
But unfortunately, the way this is presented,
You're right.
it's deceiving to me in a way, and the public, because it doesn't look that way. You're showing where there were increased expenditures, but you haven't shown where it's cost neutral or how you actually got the budget down to an 8.9 levy, which is good. Don't get me wrong. I greatly appreciate that, but it's not as, I guess, as transparent as we could be to say, okay, we're looking like we're spending a lot more money, but if it's offset by grants and other sources, somehow we have to be able to communicate that.
And I do actually have a document of basically what I did is I basically looked at the expenses in 22 or 23 compared to 22. I excluded a couple of the funds, which would have been these would have been the debt funds and actually the capital building of the jail. You don't have this document. That's how I came up with basically, if I would have ran that for like the operating expenses, our expenses would have went up about $3.3 million. So then I tried to kind of say is like, what were some of those increases to come up to that $3.3 million? Wages and benefit was, one area. Cost of the bonds, that was another area. Increase in our utilities, electricity, gas, and then gas and diesel fuel. There's a comp plan that's in the budget that would be for 23. The pavilion at Apple Blossom, and that was that 35,000. It basically, when that was put in, it's a net because we did take some things out. There were some revenues that were going in because there was some grant money that was received. The net amount that actually is basically that 35,000, and then the software, and then the Career Force. That's kind of, and then if adding all those things I just talked about, I came to an increase of expenses about $3.1 million. And I figured, that was close to that amount of how those amount actually increased.
How you did, in all that you just said, though, in one of the lines and about a third of the way down on the front page is change estimate regarding staffing, jail partial year versus full year. And that's $773,000 less. Correct? So,
Yeah.
I mean, initially we had it fully funded, and you've decreased, all these decreases attributed to that 8.9 levy versus the 10 or even 25 that you started.
Yeah, correct. And actually, it would have been even further when we started with tracking, because we actually really started with a 25% increase, and then we, got it down, and now we're down to about 8.9%.
Interim Administrator Holte, did you have some comments? I know you were.
So, thank you, Mr. Moga. So part of what that list that you asked for was a complete list of the changes. So that's what we provided.
Yep.
There wasn't ample time for us to go through and articulate every single change to the budget.
Right.
So from the time that we presented the original draft budget to the time that we're proposing this, that list contains all of the changes. And that's why you're not able to kind of track every single one in its entirety, because we were trying to put everything in that document to the best of our ability in a very short period of time.
Sure. No, I appreciate that. It's a tool that I'm trying to work through. Thank you.
So in a nutshell, we are looking for direction on the levy so that Mr. Molga can prepare the essential documents for the upcoming meeting. I mean, if you have other questions on the budget, most certainly Mr. Moga and I can answer those for you.
Commissioner Jacob?
The 175,000 on the comp plan, that could certainly be potentially just reviewed for probably just a fraction of that, 25,000. We already have the staff on board. You know, we'll have to meet the legal requirements of the law, but to just outright say we're going to spend 175,000 upfront updating our comp plan just seems, to me, just grossly out of line. It's very possible that when the planning commission community looks at it, they might say that we've got the right comp plan. It needs some minor tweaking, some minor refinements, and doesn't need any $175,000 spent on. In fact, I sit on the planning commission, and at our last planning commission meeting, we discussed how by and large things really go quite smoothly. So that's a significant percentage of this increase.
Commissioner Meyer?
With respect to Mr. Jacob's thoughts, we will do the comp plan in more than 1 year, right? So does this shift any of the cost to 2024? It, so
Yeah.
it isn't, so it's 175 in 2023 and more in 2024? Okay. So, I mean, I suppose I would support, it's worth at least looking at if that's necessary and if there are ways to cut costs. So I'd be willing to at least ask you to look at it. The other thing, and I'm not picking a fight, Commissioner Ward, but we have $1,750,000 in reserves in the sales tax fund, and that's for spending on road and bridge.
Mhm.
So we've got that sitting there, and staff had asked us earlier, could we shift 250,000 from this year's levy and take it from the sales tax funds instead, just for 2023. So my question is, both you and Commissioner Jacob were categorically opposed to doing that. And so that's fine. I just want to know if you would like to reconsider, because that's like a full point.
Are you asking me a question?
Yeah.
I'm asking Commissioner
Okay.
Ward.
Well,
That's a full point. Would you consider it?
when we passed that, I think you have to stop and think, when we passed that sales tax, I think it specifically said that we couldn't do what you're asking us to do. That sales tax has to be dedicated, the sales tax has to be dedicated to a defined list of road projects. And to take away the small amount that we use for local levy for roads and bridges, I think is a very slippery slope, because we just had a meeting a week or so ago about the big project up by Wilson that's going to be, what was it, 3.5 miles, and it's about $6 million. And it's dependent on using some of that sales tax. So the rising cost of road materials, 250,000 isn't going to buy you but a couple feet of road. But I think it's important to leave it in the road, because roads and bridges are such a core function of county government.
Right. And we're not saying that we'll not spend the money. We're simply saying we wouldn't take it from the levy in 2023.
I think if we start decreasing the amount of levy that we put into roads and bridges is, again, not something that I would support. I think we need to support our road and bridge fund.
Commissioner Jacob?
Yeah, so this was really put under a microscope before we adopted this half-cent sales tax. And I remember Winona Post covering it very thoroughly, that is this in fact what the county board would do in the future? Would they supplant the funds that the county had been putting towards road and bridge, and then essentially milk off the money one way or another to put into the general fund? Which I understand you're saying technically we're not doing, but if we're supplanting money that had been going into the road and bridge fund, that's, I don't want to have any part of that. That's completely, to me, disingenuous, not what the tax was set up to do. And I want to stand very firm on if we're gonna do a half-cent sales tax, be completely transparent with the community. We brought that money in for additional help on our roads and bridges, and any way of planning that is just, to me, unethical.
Commissioner Olson?
I would tend to agree with that. That's what that half-cent sales tax was for. And I know that Dave Kramer offered it up as a potential levy savings or levy increase savings. I also recall, we had two commissioners sitting here as we discussed this that said they will not support anything greater than zero. So we, are kind of in a conundrum that we can fight about this all we want, and if you're just gonna vote no anyway, then why are we arguing? I don't know what out of these lists of major expenditures could get us to zero.
I just offered 150,000, which was another 1.5, wasn't it, or on the comp plan?
And we
0.5%.
Yeah,
said we're gonna look at that, but that doesn't get us to zero.
Yeah, well, I've said all along I voted against the jail from day one. That's certainly a major factor in this budget, and that's why you're gonna see me vote against a tax increase. The same reason I voted against the jail.
And what was the cost of not having a jail? But it's ridiculous to argue about it because we all know.
Well, if we're talking about the 200,000 road and bridge capital projects, it seems like that's not adjusting the sales tax money. And it seems like in this budget so far, everyone is cut past bare bones, some of them, except road and bridges, because they haven't really made a contribution. Well, they've put up one of the loaders.
They've actually, cut some things because there were some things like the fuel that was cut in road and bridge also. So they've made some cuts. It was just one of those items that we had brought forth earlier was to make that as a reduction, one of the reductions.
Okay, well, I'm just saying that, if we are looking for extra money, it seems like some of that 200,000 might be a source also. Commissioner Ward and then Commissioner Jacob.
A question, actually, we're not asked to take any action tonight. This is an update on the
So
information.
we're giving
And you will continue to look through the budget and some of the grants and funding and things to see if there's any duplication or reason to reduce or change anything, because I know all our contracts seem to be changing every time they come up for renewal. So we're not asked to make a decision tonight. We're asked to just give direction. Okay.
Right,
And-
but the caveat was that the sooner we can make a decision, the sooner Mr. Moga can get started on the paperwork. Yeah,
For the
sorry.
public meeting.
Yeah.
On the 13th,
On December
December 13th.
13th.
The next board meeting.
Is that the 13th? Okay.
Commissioner Jacob. And then
So,
Commissioner Olson.
Yeah, so one statement is that this is a bare bones budget. I see it as a fully funded government. We haven't cut a single employee. We haven't cut any programs. This is fully funding plus, really asking to pad the reserves by, another 500,000. So I just don't see it that way. This is a fully funded government. And given where our taxpayers are at, inflation, all the pressures put on the taxpayer, if there ever was a time to tighten our belts and potentially look at reducing or cutting government services or programs, this would be the time to do so. And that's why I am not supporting a tax increase.
Commissioner Olson.
I noted that we had approval of ordering our highway department loader under consent that went unanswered, but I'm hoping, Commissioner Jacob, that when you get to St. Paul, you can help us fund this problem by providing the necessary revenue for our programs.
And I think each of us sitting here with our liaison to the committees and the work that we do, we know of departments that at this stage, they may be fully funded, but they're not providing the full potential of the services that people need. There are many needs that are unmet by this budget, but is it fully funded? To the extent that it is funded, it's fully funded, but there are unmet needs. So, do we have enough direction?
Not exactly.
There's mud?
There's mud.
I mean, we most certainly will keep looking at it, but, you know, I'm not quite sure what direction you want us to do for the levy. I mean,
Just get us to zero.
Actually, I don't want it. I don't want the levy to be at zero. I want us to continue funding county government. And I don't think that there's a consensus. I think the thing is, there's just not a consensus among commissioners of any particular direction. I am appreciative that you've brought us to the point that you have.
Yes. Very
I
much.
think something needs to be determined tonight, because
well, we need to do the not the
Oh.
preliminary, the
Public
levy.
public meeting.
So you, I mean, you have to set some direction for you to have your public hearing on whatever it is that you're looking at setting.
We need to set a date for the public hearing.
No,
No,
that's the
that-
13th.
That's the 13th.
That's just.
That's why we're having the night meeting.
And the preliminary was 10%. We have at the present time at 8.9% using $1 million in reserves.
So in order to bring it down to 8.5, how much is that? That's like 0.4,
Be 0.4.
140,000?
I don't know.
And you're still over on the 312.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd probably, I would say at 0.5, it'd be like 110. So
110?
yeah. So
At
probably a little
0.5.
at 0.5. So
Oh,
maybe right around.
My thinking to the rest of the
90,000.
board is, are you willing to take another 110 off the reserves?
Reserves.
So using
110,000?
110 or whatever, that brings it down to 8.5.
I was thinking 8.5, so it would be
Oh.
0.4. We're at 8.9, so if we wanted to bring it down to 8.4,
Oh, 8.4. okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
so
So,
it'd be around 100, a little under 100,000?
because, well, actually one that if you're going from 8.9 to 8.4 would be 0.5%.
Right.
Yeah, you want to come, you want
No,
to bring,
I'm 8.5.
okay, you want to go to
Dang,
8.5.
I'm so sorry. 8.5.
Okay,
That's why I'm not running the meeting, man, because
I
I'm,
want to take 4/10 off the,
yeah,
Okay.
4/10.
yeah, and I would say it's going to be right around 90,000 or so. I meant, but I can do that when I go back to the office.
So my question is if the board's comfortable with that.
it has to be the majority of the board, because I'm saying zero.
Yeah, I'm aware of that.
Yeah.
So I believe probably Commissioner Ward is saying the same
Yeah.
thing.
Philosophically.
oh, Commissioner Ward.
Question, when will the estimated property tax statements go out? I've already received some from other
I
counties.
think it's right around this week, right around Thanksgiving that they go out.
Usually
This week,
it's
yeah,
holiday greetings,
yeah.
yeah.
It's usually right around this week, first part of next week that they'd
Okay.
be going out.
And that is
Well,
being sent out with,
10%.
that is sent out with a 10% guesstimate.
Yep, because that's set out with the preliminary on it.
Right, okay, all right, okay, well, we may have some reactions with that from the public. I just needed to know that.
And that's also sent out with all the other cities, townships,
Right.
their increases. It's,
Mhm.
Back to the reserves, I'd be willing to take 90,000 out of the reserves. Try to get the percent lower.
okay.
Positive from Commissioner Olson.
Gets us closer to zero, so I'm sure we have other support.
Okay, does that give you additional direction?
It does, yeah.
Very clear direction. Okay,
There's, I think we're going to get tonight.
yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for all your work. on
thank
that.
you very much. We appreciate all the work that's being done.
Thank you.
Okay, item 7.3, approve or deny future agenda item to receive update regarding Daily Farms versus Winona County litigation.
Yes, I brought this up and I would just like to haven't heard any update. I have no idea. And that was one of the, when I was door knocking the last election, that was a topic that I was asked about a lot. And I guess I would like an update. If
Okay,
it
but
can
we
be a
need-
public meeting or a closed session, I don't care. I want an update.
At this point, we need 3 votes to discuss this
Right.
fully, so keep that in mind.
Yes, well, of course, I seconded it and
Right.
I would echo that. I have heard that many times at the doors when I was knocking in Winona County. Certainly a very real concern. And it seems odd that the county board's not being kept abreast of it.
Wait till you vote on the discussion. If I share anything at this point.
Okay.
Okay, is there any further discussion? We don't have a motion.
You said you needed.
We need 3 votes to discuss this fully at the next
Oh, at the
board
next
meeting.
meeting.
Okay, well, I'll move.
Isn't that the stage we're in? This is the
Yes,
second,
you
yeah.
just approve or
This is the
deny to move
second
it
time
forward.
it's up.
Okay, so I moved to ask for an update on the most current lawsuit,
And I would ask that you do that in a closed session.
right? I would move to have a closed session regarding the update on the most recent lawsuit.
I'll second. Need one more, I guess. So.
Okay, so we have a motion made by Commissioner Ward, seconded by Commissioner Jacob to have a closed session to have the board receive an update on the litigation. Is there any further discussion? Okay, let's have a vote. All those in favor of bringing this to a full discussion, to a closed session, excuse me, at a future board meeting, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, oppose? Okay, so we will have a closed session discussion and update on the litigation. Did you have any comments?
Well, no, wait a minute. I think we have the discuss. I don't think we actually have the closed session. I think we have the discussion about having a
Oh,
closed
right.
session.
Okay,
Right?
excuse me.
Right?
Yes.
Unless information is made available to the full county board prior
Okay,
to a closed schedule.
So we will have a discussion about scheduling.
We shouldn't have to have a discussion about having a closed.
This was our new
No.
procedure.
Honestly, you had the opportunity to change this and you chose not to.
Procedure, and somehow it sounded good at the time, but boy, it's really gotten us into trouble sometimes.
We can override procedure at any time with a majority board of the vote, majority vote of the full board. So again, I will propose that we have a scheduled closed session to discuss the details of the most current lawsuit.
And
Okay.
as your attorney, I would encourage the board so that you do get up-to-date information on it in a confidential closed session.
So we're having the same vote again?
I'm just saying, let's have it. Let's not, we're not gonna put it on
Talk
the,
about
on the
it next
December to
time.
talk about it again. Let's just schedule a closed session. Circumventing this 3 meetings to get anything done.
Get anything on the agenda.
Yeah. So I'm saying,
Or I could ask as county attorney that the interim county administrator Holtzy put this on as a closed session on the December
next
13th
meeting?
okay, I can live with that.
Okay. So there's my
So then-
formal request.
Okay. So then we'll mute.
Okay, we're up to item 7.4. Approve or deny future agenda item to discuss makeup of Road and Bridge Committee. And this is at the same stage. It needs a majority tonight to move ahead to have a full discussion. And I actually proposed it, realizing that we actually have a public committee that has no public members. So it seems like the Road and Bridge Committee needs to review its makeup and its policies or its procedures and be a public committee, just like the other committees. But that's what we would talk about in the future meeting if we move this on.
Well,
Commissioner Ward.
clarification, it's been an internal committee. It's never been a public committee. And we have some internal committees, like, don't we have a safety committee and insurance committee?
Land records.
Records. So we do have, other internal committees that don't have public members appointed or anything. So I guess that I think your statement is a little,
Yeah, not to get
not totally true.
Okay. It seems to me that this one, more than safety or land records, has been dealing with public issues. Road and bridges is a very public issue. Okay, Commissioner Meyer.
Yeah, I'm gonna support moving forward to have the conversation because they apparently, even though they supposedly didn't set policies, they did set policy about the cattle pass thing. So
No, we
No.
brought that to the board.
Yeah, we had a
We don't set
discussion.
policy there. We only make recommendations.
so I'm gonna, but I'm gonna support moving forward to have this conversation at a future meeting.
Second that, if that was, yeah. Or
Was
third
it a
it?
second?
I'm
Yeah,
gonna
okay,
third
no, I'll say it's a motion.
it. Okay.
Okay. We have a motion by Commissioner Meyer, seconded by Commissioner Olson, to go ahead and have a full discussion about the land record, the Road and Bridges Committee,
Makeup of the.
the
road and
makeup of the Road and Bridges Committee.
Well, not just make up the function, I would say the function of the Road and Bridge Committee, not not necessarily limited to the makeup of Road and Bridge.
You have to ask the maker of the motion what.
I'll accept that, yeah. I'll restate my motion, discuss the function and makeup of the Road and Bridge Committee.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. Is there any further discussion?
Shake hands, baby.
Oh, you have
We're
to-
making Heidi getting her steps in today. Okay. The motion is to have a full discussion at a future board meeting on the function and the makeup of the Road and Bridge Committee. All those in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? Okay, the motion passes 3 to no votes.
No, I know.
Everybody.
Oh, I didn't
was
hear you. I'm
unanimous.
sorry.
It was
Oh.
unanimous.
Okay,
Write that down.
okay. I got it. It's
Chris, you
it's
get that?
changed. Okay, and Attorney General, County Attorney. Oh, no. County Attorney Sonneman, you had an announcement or, yeah, sorry.
Well, I just wanted to let the board know officially that I was elected earlier this fall by the Board of Directors of the Minnesota County Attorneys Association to serve as the state director of Minnesota on the National District Attorneys Association, or NDAA for short, of the Board of Directors in 2023. And I will also continue on the Minnesota County Attorneys Association Board of Directors, MCAA, in 2023, and I'm on track to become the president of MCAA in 2025. So I would just like to, ask you and anybody out there. If you have any issues you'd like to discuss with me, that I can bring to the NDAA or the MCAA board meetings. I'd be glad to, among much of the other good work for the common good that both organizations do. They're active regarding legislative work at the state. MCAA is, as well as NDAA is very active at the national congressional level. And that benefits the delivery of public safety services here at the local level. So just want to let you guys know.
Thank you. And thank you for your service. It's not unusual that your qualifications would be noticed by other people. So thank you very much.
You have to get our permission to propose any legislation, or you just do that as lawyers?
Well, I do that as an elected official,
Okay.
and the body does it really. I mean, the board, just like this board has to vote. But I would be glad to, if there's issues that come up that you're aware of from the
Like the legalization of recreational marijuana?
which, yes,
be a
I
hot
have,
topic.
I have issues with.
Yeah, it might be a hot
Yeah.
topic that we need to discuss in the future.
It's one of those where we're not ready to regulate. Yeah.
They keep us abreast.
I will keep
Yummy.
you abreast with the reports from. Yes.
All right, thank you. Congratulations.
Yes, thank you very much. Okay. If there's no other business, I think we need a motion to adjourn.
And then does 10.1 have to go in with that?
We're going into closed session.
Close.
Oh,
We adjourn and then go to close.
adjourn.
Motion to adjourn and enter into closed section pursuant to Minnesota statute 13D.03 subdivision 1B to discuss strategies for labor negotiations for all collective bargaining groups.
Okay, motion to adjourn and move into a closed session. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? Okay, we are adjourned and we're moving into closed session.
No.